but also does external quality control evaluations and other analytical work in the area of biotechnology. So our focus is healthcare. So the companies that we provide services to are in the healthcare area. We're incubated, and behind us we also have Vesper Ventures, which is the first biotech venture building fund in Brazil. It's based in Florianopolis in the south of Brazil. So we're building a lab there to do this kind of service. And that's it. We were able to get a lot of help from FAPESP. This is an organization that in the state of São Paulo helps small companies. So we were able to raise uh, capital. This is something that helped us. So that's a way for entrepreneurial scientists to start new ventures in Brazil. So thank you. Thank you, Aruan. And we've got Miriam online. Hi, good afternoon to everyone. It's an enormous pleasure to be here. Can you hear me well? So it's an enormous pleasure to be here with you. I also come from the scientific area. So it's a great pleasure to participate in a Fiocruz event. I was also a part of the acceleration done by Biominas, so it's great to see some of my colleagues here. So I'm Miriam, co-founder of Skinzymes. Skinzymes is a company that does innovation in bioproducts. And basically, we develop three antioxidant enzymes. These are recombinant enzymes, and our focus is the dermocosmetic market, where these enzymes will be used in a topical fashion to help in preventing aging and to prevent photo damage, which is damage caused by excessive exposure to sunlight. And Skinzymes had a trajectory where it started through the acceleration program at Biominas. This was something that was very important for us to change our mindset from research to entrepreneurial activities. So we learned a lot about validation, and we are in constant contact with the system stakeholders. And so after this, we were able to get financing from FAPESP, just like what Aruan said. For those who live in São Paulo, FAPESP is really important for the initial stage of startups, those who are just starting to innovate and are just starting to develop their technologies. And now we're finishing our first project, the PP1 phase of our project. We're heading towards PP2, and that's it. Uh, Skinzymes focus is to provide ingredients to the cosmetic industry and to the pharmaceutical industry and also to the food industry. And we always want to bring biotechnology and innovation and enzymatic products, recombinant products, so that we can bring the intelligence of nature in a recombinant way and offer innovative products to industry. Okay, thank you, Miriam. It was great to hear from you. And so let's move on. I have some questions. I want to raise some issues for us to talk about. So if anybody wants to ask a question, please write it down. And then somebody will be collecting the paper because we can't have everybody talk in the microphone because of the transmission taking place. Okay, so all of you talked about how you all come from the sciences area and you all worked on research, and from one day to the next, you all began entrepreneurial activities. So there was this challenge of changing and creating a team with a team composed of people with different profiles. And the creation of teams is one of the most important aspects of startups. So I'd like you to tell us about how this experience has been. That is, this experience, your own transformations, and also the creation of a team for your startups, because Again, like I said, this is one of the most crucial aspects for the development of a startup. So would you like to start, Carol? Yeah, Eduardo mentioned talked about a very important point, which is a complementary team. So we are researchers, that's our training. So at, during my studies, I wasn't exposed to entrepreneurship classes in college. And now we see that students are leaving university knowing that they can follow a different path. So I'm a biologist, and so for me, life was my career was supposed to be becoming a researcher. And today, young people know that there are other paths, there are other options. And I wasn't lucky back then. So when we start to be entrepreneurs, we we feel that we need multidisciplinary teams. It's not enough to do research and having an innovative product. You need to have people to help you with your business because that your product needs to make sense to the market. But when we start, we don't always have resources, the financial resources to attract these people. So we're always trying to do training until we we get the resources and the energy we need to attract these people. Aruan and I, we were lucky enough to be approved in the in a selection process, and this was a program for research in small companies. FAPESP basically finances research in small companies. I'm here today because of FAPESP, and Medium and Aruan also got support for them. So FAPESP realized that there was this need to attract complementary skills. So in partnership with Sebrae, uh, basically we were able to bring business people to our organization, to our company. And this was a complete change within our company because even though as scientists, we go through training, we will never be market driven like somebody who got a degree in business. So it's important to bring an alternative, a complementary vision, and to really change the strategies of the company. Yeah, that's interesting. And I even have a vision that's complementary to yours, Carol, because I think I was bitten by the little entrepreneurial mosquito in the past because I was still in college when I started to hear about entrepreneurship. So for me, it was much easier to include these things that are usually outside the academic mindset. Now, the scientist needs to learn that he needs to decentralize. And when we talk to startups that just got financing, such as a postdoc student, the first thing these people say is, "Oh, I'm going to be doing research with this money." But we need to understand that as managers and entrepreneurs, we need to abandon this idea of centralizing everything. And we need to delegate tasks so that people can help us. And it's only with people and entrepreneurship that we're able to bring products to people. It's only with applied research and cutting edge research, such as what's done by Biomanguinhos, that that's the only way for us to take innovations from university and bring it to people, the people who need it. So multidisciplinary teams and complementary teams and the management that goes behind that, all of that is fundamentally important. So never be afraid to decentralize. In the last few days, somebody asked me, okay, so how do you decentralize a task that's so crucial for the development of my technology? And the answer for that is, well, there are things that are crystal cups and there are basically juice cups. You can allow the juice cup to break. So you can decentralize and allow things to go wrong. But obviously you don't want to drop a crystal cup. So basically that's my analogy and that's my vision about this topic.
Queria complementar alguma coisa e falar pouco aí da sua experiência?
Would you like to talk about your experience, Miriam? Yes, I totally agree with Carol and Aruan. And commenting on what Aruan has said about the team, although we are in an initial point, I think that one of the key words is trust. In this movement that we are having of decentralizing, especially when we come from the scientific field, we have to face some challenges. The first one is to be detached. And we should be detached from the lab, from the bench. And I suffer when I think that I shouldn't be studying anymore and I should be engaged with the business, talking to the e-commerce developer and different peoples. And on the other hand, another challenge that I notice is that for us to make that happen, we have to fit into our team people with who are excellent in what they do. If it's someone for business, they must be an excellent business person. A financial person should be an expert as well. So if you want someone in the lab, you need someone with a lot of expertise in what they're going to do. And then we also have the issue of how to manage the different people that sometimes they understand much more about that subject than you. So it's a great challenge. We have to create measures and the right ecosystem, and incubation is also very important because entrepreneurs from different startups, they have different ideas and different experiences every day. So that coffee break moment is very rich for us to learn how to do that. For instance, I had a problem with someone from my team. I don't know how to deal with that. What what are the metrics that you created? I think this is very important. And also trust above all. We have to understand that something can go wrong, but we must know how to manage the mistakes and overcome the mistakes. And we have to communicate the feedback to the team as well. And there's another challenge for the startups that are beginning, how to attract great experts if we don't have a lot of income. So we are depending upon investments and so on. So we are able to find some solutions. You can hire some of the people as advisors. We also have some mentors that helps. We have outsourced services, and that will help us a lot in this beginning.
Bem, obrigado, Miriam.
Thank you, Miriam.
Com você
I
aqui
will
outro
move
conceito
on
que
with
pode
you
vir
to talk about another
é o
important
modelo de
point.
negócio. Né? A gente
That
bate muito
is about the business
modelo de
model.
negócio, né,
We
no nosso
talk about the
programa
business model
e
of the
você sai do
program,
programa com uma
and you
ideia de
leave the program
metodologia de
with this
negócio.
idea about a
Fala para a gente
business
aí o que
model.
mudou no
So
modelo de
what
negócio de
changed
vocês,
in your
qual foi a
business
metodologia
model?
que você escolhe,
What,
que vocês viram
what did
que dava
evolve?
certo, o que
Where
vocês
did you
viram que
go?
está errado.
Where did you go right? Where did you go wrong?
De vocês aí pouco
And talk
como
about your
começar a se
experience in
desenvolver
modeling
novo
this
modelo de negócio a partir
new
do que
business
você
model
vê no mercado. Como é que
from
você
your
fez a
experience in the
estruturação das
market.
startups de
How do you
vocês
model
de uma
your
forma totalmente
startups
diferente do
in a
que
different
vocês
way
imaginavam na
than
cabeça
you
de vocês?
imagined in the beginning?
Você.
Should I start? At Skinzymes, we didn't change our business model much because our enzymes, the way we develop them in a recombinant way, they have their enhanced matter. They enter deeply in the skin. So our market was concerning biocosmetics. So what happened since the beginning when we started with Biominas, we had many validations. So from the start, people taught us to be in contact with our possible clients. So in our case, it was the industry of uh, skin cosmetics and the manufacturers of skin cosmetics. So since the beginning, we were able to talk to them and improve our ideas, being more certain about what we imagined and also changing what we needed to change. Our business model was a B2B model to provide ingredients to the industry. And And we see that there are other markets for enzymes. So we focused on skin cosmetics due to regulation because it was a short development process, but we could have started with the pharma area with therapeutic treatment, but we didn't change much our business model, but we became stronger and stronger. Each validation we had, each person we talked to, and they told us you're in the right path or change a little bit your path. So that changed our working ways. We were more certain, we understood better how to structure ourselves, not only the business model, but we were able to change our operations by understanding the market's pain, because that was something very hard for us to reach. This understanding, this deep understanding. So besides participating in Biominas, we also had the entrepreneur training in this FAPESPIS program. And they also insisted a lot about understanding the client's pain, the market's pain. So we were able to enhance everything that we imagined. If we observe our initial presentation, our initial PowerPoint, we had ideas that were unconnected. And as we evolved after entering the market, we became much more robust with much more certainty. That's what changed. Aruan, would you like to complement? Yes, it's a long story in my case, but to sum up, I would say that as we validate the business model, and by validation, I mean putting the product in the market, and then you have to get feedback and you observe the process, and we change many different things. And in our case, we were able to develop our own biomolecule. And other companies asked us to provide service about this validation. And we said, no, we don't validate. Our focus is this one. And at one time, we stopped and we said, if we have demand, we want to validate demand. So now we are providing service of validation, and we are servicing the other big companies. And something that I believe that I should highlight is something that might be very cliche, but before spending a lot of money in biotech and a lot of time, you should ask if your user would like to buy that, if your patient would like to buy that. If I'm developing a cancer drug, I should ask the doctor, why this is not enough for you, and what would you need to have what is enough? So now we have this centered business model. What I'm going to develop, they are in line with the needs of the doctors, of the patients. So we have to highlight that for those who are willing to learn, it's not only a good idea that will make that idea. The idea is to have a commodity, because the idea is not enough. What is valid is what is behind. And one of them is the validation of the market itself. It's not to validate with one or two people, but with 100 people, 200 people. Aruan has his product in the market and he is in fact testing. In the case of in situ, he even changed his model, right? Yes, most certainly. We changed to this model that could generate income in the short run. But do you maintain the molecule project? Yes, we maintain that, but we were subsidized. Our our project at Crop, we keep developing that, but only uh, with investments, and we started generating income from other sources and to pay the bills for this 8 people team, lab, and so on. Generation of income was what saved us. Great. And in situ, we are we are very much constrained by regulatory issues. It's a long process until we get to the market, but we have this validation and we changed our business model, our clients. We didn't change much the product in fact, but the client changed because at principle, we thought of developing, we wanted to treat patients who were burned or had chronic wounds. And our initial idea was to take the cells of the patient. We took that to the lab, we cultivated the cell and applied in the patient. When we validated that business model, when we showed to different doctors, patients, and those who provide care, we saw that it didn't make sense because this process of cultivating cells is a long process. So it would take me 1 month, 2 months to deliver the product, the therapeutic solution to the patient. If they have a chronic wound, that's okay because they have been treating that for a long time with no solution. But if it was a person who was burned, oh, in 2 months, they would be discharged from the hospital or unfortunately they died. So we needed this faster possibility. And thinking about the business, imagine stopping this lab to cultivate the cell for a single patient. So during validations, we had to change. And there's an issue of logistics as well. You have to take the cell not only in Sao Paulo, but also in the whole Brazil, right? Yes, it's a global business. And being a service provider, we would have to have an in situ clinic just to provide this service. It would be a very expensive service, very personalized. And we thought, why not go back to the initial idea from my master's studies that was to make this dressing with cells from the umbilical cord. I have a great amount of cells that are frozen in my lab. And with this 3D printing, I could do that. But before that, I was printing manually. So how could I produce 10, 20, 1 million dressings? That would be impossible to have scalability. So today, with the bioprinter, with the umbilical cells, that are allogenics, they are not rejected. So I'm able to have the cell bank, I'm able to produce my dressings in the same way, and I have a reasonable stock for a biological product. So today, when we get to the market itself, when the patient needs to use that product, we will have the product available to offer. Another important point was that we were talking about the client. When we're talking about the wounds, it's impossible to separate the idea from the patient because the patient is feeling the pain, but he's not our client. So this is a difficult process for us to understand. Because the client today for us are the different hospitals. So the business model that we were able to design after Biominas was to hand the dressings via the different hospitals. So the big hospitals that are providing care to the different patients, they are asking the product to in situ. So this is an exercise of testing and asking for those who are in that chain if what you're designing makes sense. If it's going to work, I still don't know. The validation, in fact, will happen when we come to the market. But we believe that we have a great evidence that this path is a viable path for delivering the bio dressings. Wonderful. We have a question. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to say that this session has the inspiration of Dr. Rodrigo Correia, our research vice president in Oswaldo Cruz Foundation, showing his concern that of the institution to transform all the scientific knowledge into products. And one of the ways, as we see, is really via startups. So we are seeing here startups from the São Paulo University, from Unesp, from the University of Ribeirão Preto, and Biominas, which is led by Eduardo Henry, and it's considered one of the most successful hubs in the country. And what I'd like to say is that Brazil is well known as one of developing countries that publishes the most. We have leadership in communicating scientific works, but we don't have many patents, we don't have many products coming from this scientific knowledge, right? So most certainly, it, it lacks this phase of transformation of knowledge into products, and startups is one of the ways. We have several ways, but startups show that this is possible. And I'd like to ask to the roundtable and all the participants and Dr. Eduardo the following question. What do we need to do to increase this activity of transforming the scientific knowledge into a product? Because the scientists, they need to talk more about business models, about market, about many different things, but we have this death valley to bridge, and that means important investments that need to be done. So I would like to ask from you some suggestions for strengthening this activity and having more startups in the country. Thank you so much.
Mesa, e aí quem
Okay,
quiser
so I will give the floor to our panelists, and then we can have Miriam give her opinion. But so, Carol, do you want to start? Well, I love these moments that we're going through because this is what stimulates all of this. We've got incredible products in the shelves at universities and labs. And as an entrepreneurial scientist, it's my mission to stimulate people to remove those products from the shelves. Not all knowledge will become products. And knowledge by itself is important, but that knowledge which can become a product should leave the university. Today, we are seeing the organization of new innovation hubs within universities. And Brazil has a tradition of research being done at public institutions. The scientists, there's not this demand to generate products. There's this demand for the scientists to generate articles. But we are seeing a change. We are seeing incentives to make sure that this knowledge turns into products that will reach the marketplace. And so for this, I think it's important to have training and knowledge so that we can understand that this is in fact possible. Yeah, I agree with what you said, Carol. I think the niches and the nuclei at universities, they have become more flexible and they've learned about how to do these public-private partnerships, and they found out how to allow teachers and students to venture. So these nuclei need to continue to become flexible so that they can understand how the private world will see this participation. And we also should continue fostering entrepreneurship at universities. When I was in college, in my first year of college, people talked very little about entrepreneurship, but in my last year, people started talking about it a lot because we started seeing innovation offices and entrepreneurial classes in college. So I think public institutions, they need to become more flexible so that they can understand how to work with entrepreneurial students and with private companies outside universities. And we've been seeing this in São Paulo. I think we're on the right path, but this is a path that isn't simple. It's a very long path. CAPES itself, with its professional master's programs and their professional PhDs, uh, they've been changing with that. So today, CAPES considers technological production. And sometimes you have to you use invoices to be a part of these programs. So this is a program stimulated by copies. So things have changed, and I think things will continue to improve. I have a lot of hope, and I think we'll see a lot of change. Medium? Okay, okay, so going back to what Aruan is saying, I think the innovation milestone uh, was very important, but I think Skinzymes face some obstacles, because when we talk about starting a new venture and getting a product that was born at a university, and when we're talking about turning this into a new venture, into a new product, I think that there are a lot of issues that can really make a difference in terms of whether the company will survive or die. And one of these things is a strategy related to intellectual property. We took part in some micro courses to begin to understand what is a patent and when patents should be applied for. We were able to patent our product, but we had to do it through the university. But basically, there's some timing issues that don't always align with what we want to do, because when we applied for a patent, we lacked the infrastructure for that. So we did an agreement with the University of São Paulo to use part of their infrastructure. We we were also incubated in an institution that's part of the Albert Einstein Hospital. And this institution provided us with some more infrastructure. So in the beginning, we had some labs that we could work in. We didn't have anything that was really concentrated. So I think that what lacks is basically this lack of technological centers, especially for startups that are getting financing. So the strategy for intellectual property, when that's when that's partnered with the university's know-how and with entrepreneurship, that's the best thing, because it's not enough to have create a patent, to apply for a patent. You need strategy. And it's basically only entrepreneurships that have an understanding about this. So we got a lot of support from incubators, but still, I think some gaps remained. I think this is something that could be studied a little bit more and be better structured. So a niche at universities, they will begin to mature as new demands show up. Just for you guys to have an idea, we applied for a patent at the peak of the pandemic. So there was nobody in person at the university. And we had a hard time to get in touch with people from the niche. In the end, we thank the university for helping us. But there were some things that caused us delay. And from a business perspective, things can't stop. So these obstacles need to be solved with more agility. And we need to bring these two worlds together, the business world and the academic world. I think all of the participants in this ecosystem need to be on the same page. Yeah, I agree. And we have another question, but I think time's up. But basically, I want to answer a little bit about that question too. The environment changed in Brazil in the last 3 years. I've been the director at Biominas. I've been a director of Biominas for 18 years, and I've never seen such a positive scenario in the country. And everything changed in the past 3 years. we see an increasing number of startups being created from, and I'm talking about biotechs. This morning, I was at the health tech sector, and the health sector saw an enormous number of health tech companies, and today we see a large number of biotechs. A few years ago, I knew all of the biotechs in Brazil, but today I no longer know all of the biotechs that are in existence, and that's great. When I go to an event and I see a biotech doing something new, I think that's great. So we have well-structured niches. We have programs such as PIP and other programs that have been carried out. And here at Fiocruz, there has been an enormous effort related to innovation. Rodrigo has been carrying out this discussion. We started to do some pre-acceleration programs for projects and startups. And during every single round, we have a large number of candidates. We see a lot of great projects which, when presented to the market, are very well evaluated. So we're talking about high-tech products and a great possibility to create startups. And this ended up leading to the creation of a milestone landmark at the institution. On the other hand, we also see a lot of interest coming from companies, not just foreign companies, but also national pharmaceutical companies, companies which in the past weren't very interested in innovation. So they're training their employees, they're investing, and they're creating better innovation programs. And so we start getting funds that are dedicated to healthcare companies and also biotech companies. There was a fund that recently invested in Aruan's company. So we're considering funding companies that invest in Series A companies, which are companies which is the kind of financing that involves a lot of risk. So my message is, invest because there's a great potential for us to grow. The more success cases we have, the greater the number of initiatives that we will see. So just to conclude, one of the investors from our fund is a manager of one of the biggest fund management companies, and that's Inspect Investimentos. So the manager of Inspect said that he wants to invest money in biotechnology because he sees an enormous potential of the sector. So I think we've got a lot of potential to be leveraging new business opportunities. Okay, so we don't have any more time, so I'd like to thank the presence of our speakers. It's great to be talking with them, and I'd like to thank all of you for your presence. And we will be available to be talking to you more about this topic later. So thank you very much and good afternoon.